Greetings, and thank you for joining us for this webinar, aptly entitled Nonprofits in Crisis, Communication Strategies for Turbulent Times. And these are very turbulent times for nonprofits, and we're really hoping to help you address these and not only survive, but really thrive during these times through the creative ideas and strategies that we're presenting today. I'm Chris Rosica, president of Rosica Communications. We're a national PR, digital marketing, crisis communications, and thought leadership agency that specializes in helping nonprofits achieve their goals. For more than 2 decades, I've served on the board of Boys and Girls Clubs in New Jersey. So this sector is not only one that I work in, but one that I'm very passionate about. In partnership with the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits, Common Good Vermont, and the Association of the Midlands, we're proud to bring you this webinar. Joining me today is our moderator, Connie Ludwin, and my co-panelist, Roger Frank. Connie Ludwin is a longtime nonprofit leader who's served on the board of the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits and has helped nonprofit organizations across the state. She is also the former CEO of Boys and Girls Clubs in New Jersey. A few years ago, the stars aligned, and today Connie and I work together, which is a pleasure. She's brought her talents to Rosica Communications, where she now leads strategic communications for many of our not-for-profit clients. Roger Frank is a nationally awarded and recognized creative strategist who's spent the past 3 decades helping nonprofits tell their stories. His work has earned him numerous awards, including Addies and others, and he's appeared in various industry trade publications, including Adweek, Creativity, and Communication Arts. Roger was inducted into the AAF-CLE Hall of Fame, and more importantly, serves on several nonprofit boards, really a committed person in this area of nonprofits. So thanks again for being here. We hope you find this conversation valuable and informative. Let's dive in.
Great. Thanks so much. It's great to be here. And I wanted to tee up today's presentation by calling out organizations that rely on federal funding or whose mission involves community. But the sad truth that the entire sector is now in a crisis. And if you're a member of state associations like the New Jersey Center of Nonprofits or Common Good in Vermont, you're well aware of the threats that the sector is facing and the great work that these organizations are doing to advocate not only to protect charities, but also to mitigate any of the funding cuts and the damaging legislation. And so I want to start by giving a shout out to these organizations and really start our conversation today with a question about advocacy. When we're talking about advocacy today, our focus will be less on efforts to influence policymakers or policy, but more broader focus of advocacy. But they're all extremely important. So let's get started. Chris, I'm going to start with you. Why is having an advocacy strategy so important? And how does a nonprofit that maybe hasn't made it a priority begin to build an advocacy strategy or initiative?
Connie, you're spot on. Advocacy, we have to look at advocacy in a broader context. And what we recommend is creating an advocates board, also known as an ad board. And that's completely separate from your board of directors or your advisory board. You may have one or you may have both, but this group would consist of highly connected individuals. And I'll talk more about why it's important in just a moment, Connie. But I just wanted to kind of shape what it is first, so people kind of get where we're going with this. It's a group again of highly influential people who can help you achieve your organizational goals and objectives. That includes support, funding, legislation, et cetera. So again, people with real influence, and you should let them know that you're not going to ask them for money. Now they may give it later, but that's not the focus of building the relationship with these individuals and forming this board. It's amazing what not asking can do. So these are people who can open doors, lend credibility, influence policy in some cases, make introductions that can potentially lead to funding opportunities and partnerships, some corporate. Um, and it's obviously, important to grow since national funding is a real challenge right now. State and county funding is obviously is critical at this junction. So get them to really believe in your mission. Don't ask them for money. That influence can open doors that otherwise may remain closed. So again, the why it's so important is in most boards, and I've served on many nonprofit boards, and I currently do. Um, and there is obviously a giving piece of that, and I'm a believer that all board members, must give really to maintain the integrity of the board. But it's again to help you to help advocate on your behalf when there is, legislation that's impacting you, funding cuts that it's impacting your organization, or maybe, and other factors that are taking the otherwise competitive nonprofit landscape and now compounding that and making even more of a challenge. Lastly, you should have at least a once a year in-person meeting with these folks. You can do quarterly Zooms, but don't take too much of their time. Find out who's most enthusiastic about supporting your organization and its mission and where that alignment is. And from there, share with them your SWOT analysis, your top priorities and goals, and see if there's a way that they can assist.
Great advice, Chris. And I can testify when I led Boys and Girls Club state organization, an office of one at that point in time. Together, Chris and I established just that type of board, and that was a real game changer in expanding our reach and opening doors for us. So staying on topic of advocacy for just another minute, Roger, you and Chris both believe that when the crowd goes left, it's a great time to go right. And so how does that apply in this situation with building advocacy and engaging influencers and other key stakeholders to protect your future?
Yeah, I'll have to limit my head nodding today, so I don't look like a bobblehead. But I so agree with what Chris has said. And I think some of what comes from both being a managing partner of Little Jacket and having been a board president and sitting on numerous nonprofits is this is a moment where being personal matters, where we have to rally the troops. So simple stuff that might feel old but could be new again, like a direct call, can make all the difference to mobilize both our advocates and our supporters. And you're wanting to gather them around the campfire right now and use their power. So they appreciate that real conversation. And at times like this, they just, you can't say it enough, they really matter. And when you think about, and we're going to talk about effective ways to use digital, but also acknowledge the digital noise that's out there. And then some simple things like hosting a friend raiser. Again, like Chris said, we don't always have to make an ask. We have to make an advocate and a friend. So be authentic to your organization. Sometimes those are as small as a couple of key members. And it could be like a backyard wine tasting, or we've blown it out and it's been a larger annual event like a clam bake. And just make it authentic to what you really believe. And if it can, help spread your message, that's what you want to do. So it sometimes could be as simple as a lunch or a breakfast. So don't be afraid of old school. Don't be afraid of a hand jotted note with a stamp that just says thank you. It's a great time for strengthening connections.
Yeah, super. So you mentioned messaging, Roger. So let's talk about messaging and positioning, and which I think we all know are critical first steps in telling your organization's story and broadening your reach. So, Chris, I know you recommend to our nonprofit partners that they review their messaging at least once a year, even if they're only minor changes. Why is it so important to do that now in today's environment?
Positioning and messaging are foundational elements of all marketing communications. Therefore, the need to update them is is really obvious, particularly when things are changing as they are, and when there is the polarization that we're seeing, and um, the concerns that you're all experiencing. So clear and succinct messaging is critical in communicating your value, especially during times of crisis and transition. So we assess our clients' mission statements, their why, their website and social media copy, anything that they're using to communicate their value. In addition to that, the language that goes into um, grant applications. So it's all about aligning your stakeholders' interests and needs with the voice that you have. As long as that's authentic, go for it. So this does not have to be done by an agency. I mean, we do this work all the time, but it doesn't have to be done by an agency. If you have board members who are savvy in marketing communications, have them jump in and help you and evaluate your positioning and messaging. When we look at positioning and we look at messaging, the main thing we focus on is differentiation. In addition to standing apart and helping nonprofits stand apart, we look at the unique value proposition that you offer to your specific stakeholders and to your communities. So look at, what can you say about your organization that others just can't say? So the narrative has to clearly communicate the importance to your community, your state, or nationally if you're a national nonprofit. And then one final thought about positioning and messaging is you need to obviously update that regularly, as we said, but keep in mind specific demographics. So if you're looking to reach younger audiences, make sure that the language you're using resonates with them.
Thanks, Chris. And we'll talk more about the next gen donors a little bit later, but I want to kind of move to a specific tactic that many nonprofits have taken advantage of, which is Google Grants, to enhance their visibility online or to drive traffic to their website and rally support, whether that's financially or through volunteerism. I know there's been some recent changes in Google's policy regarding its advertising grants, and think it's important that nonprofits know what those are. And so, Chris, can you just address those a little bit, and particularly, some of the tools that you recommend?
Yes. In 2023, Google revised its policy to allow a broader range of advertisers, including other search engines, to bid on trademarked key phrases and keywords. Previously, only resellers of informational pages could use third-party trademarks under very strict guidelines. But now nonprofits that rely on their name, right, to draw website traffic, to attract donors in a competitive environment through ads and ad auctions, are now struggling to drive the same level of traffic that they did in the past. Again, that's due to the changes in Google Grants and their advertising policy under the Google Grants program. So there was a study by the Nonprofit Technology Network. It found that digital advertising costs have risen by about 30% in Google's ad network, including under their Google Grants, which means, again, it's hurting particularly smaller nonprofits by taking away some of that website traffic, which in turn can take away volunteer opportunities, obviously financial resources as well that are associated with people coming to your site if you have the right calls to action on your website. So it's critical that nonprofits maximize ROI from Google Grants, especially due to the funding issues that we've been talking about. So I think the key takeaway here is make sure that who's ever managing your Google Grants program if you have one. And if you don't, you should have one because it's $10,000 a month in free advertising for nonprofits that qualify, and that's most nonprofits. You really need to be hitting certain campaign metrics and performance criteria in order to maintain those grant dollars that Google gives. So make sure that the person doing that work knows how Google Ads work, how Google Grants work, and how to maximize clicks to those ads so you then can continue to receive those grant dollars. More important now than ever before. So optimizing keywords, tracking conversions, these are all things that are important in addition to what we said earlier, which is updating and refreshing the words that you're using in your ads to make sure that the messages are timely and relevant to your stakeholders.
Yeah, I mean, I think the Google grant program, if you're not familiar with it, I strongly encourage you to look into it. I think it's the most economical way to really geo-target your audiences and reach new potential donors and volunteers, et cetera. So for those of you that aren't familiar, feel free to contact, anyone at Rosica, and we can happy to speak to you more in depth. But I just wanted to make sure that we had a minute to talk about those changes. But staying on the topic of funding and diversifying our funding resources, Chris, I know in a recent article you wrote about nonprofits and use of AI for researching grants and applying for grants. So, it obviously can save you time, and most of us know we can't ignore AI anymore, its prominence in society. But how can nonprofits specifically take advantage, and what tools out there? I mean, it's all a little bit overwhelming. There's so many, it's new, and there's so many new tools out there. What can you share from your experience that could help cut through all that noise as well?
I'd love to know, Connie, before I answer the question, which I promise I will, I'm not politically avoiding it and going down another path. I would love to know who is utilizing Google Grants with success. You can put that in the chat. And who is using AI for grant research and grant submissions or grant writing. You can just put that in the chat. You can say, yes, Google Grants, no AI, or yes, Google Grants, yes, AI. If you could, just put that in the chat because we're curious to see what level of adoption, particularly with the AI, nonprofits are how they're utilizing it or not. So we know many nonprofits that have begun utilizing AI. Many are in the early stages, but there are definite ways of leveraging this very powerful tool. Because of the importance in finding alternative grant opportunities, particularly in light of the federal funding issues that we've discussed, you can use AI to find grants that align with your mission. So aligning their mission with yours. And there are some tools for that. So in terms of finding grants, there are two tools to think about. One is instrumental, and we'll provide a resource guide, and we'll give you like a place to go for Google Grant information. We'll give you information on the tools that we're talking about right now. But it's instrumental without the with at the very end of the word, it's TL. There's no vowel. And then Grant Station, which is one word with a capital S, is another. Both use AI to identify funding opportunities that align with specific nonprofit missions. So it saves tons of time in terms of researching grant opportunities. And then for writing grants, Grammarly has been around for a long time, but there are others that are more nonprofit focused. And by the way, I would not discount WriteSonic or ChatGPT either. And again, we'll put this in follow up after the webinar so you can have these tools at your fingertips and then do some digging or ask a member of your team to do that. But Grantable is another. It's Grantable, ABLE, all one word. That is specifically designed for nonprofits. And again, I like the tools that are using AI, again, with a specific focus on nonprofits. But some of our nonprofit partners are using Chat GPT with great success as well. So um, the I think the key is here, use the technology to save time, and that's going to boost morale with your team as well. Because if they don't have to spend grueling hours researching grants, writing grants, and they can spend their time cultivating those relationships that we're talking about, that obviously can go far to help you achieve your goals during these times.
Yeah, I saw some head nods there. So glad to see that at least few folks are using AI, and it's everywhere. I'm learning to embrace it myself, and really have found it to be a great tool. Our next question is for both Chris and for Roger. Again, we touched earlier on reaching younger audiences. Many nonprofits have been discussing how to connect with that next generation of donors. What are some of the methods that you have utilized and have found to be effective? And we'll start with Chris and then have Roger chime in.
When it comes to growing awareness and getting a younger generation of people involved in your organization, there are two main considerations. One is the messaging that what you're sharing with them, because it has to resonate or they're not going to be interested in getting involved. And the other would be the channels by which you're communicating with those groups or those individuals within those groups. So the message has to resonate. The channel has to be the channel that they're most interested in. So Gen X, Gen Z, or Zoomers, even Gen Alpha, who were born after 2010, can help sustain your nonprofit brand. And yes, nonprofits are brands, of course, into the future. So you have future generations of volunteers, board members, donors, partners. So these are the things that we look at. So an example would obviously be social media and how and what channels those younger generations are most interested in. And we know what they are, right? They're TikTok. YouTube is even surpasses TikTok and all other social platforms because more young professionals and even those that are younger, Gen Alpha, as I mentioned, they're watching multiple YouTube videos per day. Well, you all know if you have kids or have grandkids. So those things are really, really key. And then, of course, the older demographics, LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram is the one social channel that bridges both young and old, because people in their 40s and 50s are using Instagram, but so are individuals in their 20s and 30s. So these are, again, really critical. And I'll just give one other example, and that is like about the content and the messaging that you're communicating. Younger people today have clearly defined interests. They include the environment, they include social issues, anything related to equity, animal welfare. These are causes that the younger generations are very, very concerned about and willing to engage in finding solutions. So if you're aligned with any of those, you have a great opportunity. And even if you're not, find out what resonates most with those younger audiences in relation to what the work that you do, and get those messages out using the channels, again, that are most appropriate for them.
Great. So, we're in an entertainment driven society, and a lot of these younger folks want to consume, or they do consume their content via video. Roger, can you talk about video storytelling and how it can be used to reach younger audiences?
Sure. I think as Chris alluded to, you have, though it could be intimidating, there is low-hanging fruit in the fact that these younger generations care so much about societal issues. So we can't overemphasize the opportunity. Now, given where they live, TikTok, Instagram, um, Snapchat, you need to kind of combine the ancient art of storytelling, which is also always the most powerful way to get your message out. According to Stanford Graduate School of Business, stories are remembered 22 times more than facts alone. And so if we don't put our facts in the cloak of a great story, then we've already failed. And then when you think about a younger audience or about us being inundated in general as a society, how do we again tell our story succinctly? How do we tell it in an interesting way? Video is very powerful for that. Video immediately, when done correctly, can humanize. It's able to be leveraged so quickly across these various social platforms. It could be used again on your website. And it just humanizes your brand, as I said, and allows advocates and others to share the work freely. The thing I always caution here is beware of the long form video. I know you have many reasons to believe in your organization, but don't think that someone's gonna, Google has proven this out for us. Anything over a minute in length, just the drop off is precipitous, and it's going to actually not help your organization. But if you are passionate, and I'm sure you are, and you'd like to share many stories, start thinking about a series of videos. Start thinking about how might I create a user journey that makes sense with the stories that we're sharing. There are many ways to, again, capture the enthusiasm and all the important benefits of your organization without stacking it into one 15-minute masterpiece. Also, just thinking about the fact that you can start a conversation through video, allowing people to react to what you've sent, and maybe it might modify your direction in future videos. Be open to what the opportunities are.
Super, super. So, a fresh identity too, a new brand, a new appearance can sometimes be the catalyst needed to engage new and or younger audiences, or just simply to better reflect your organization's evolving mission. Roger, can you speak about the importance of a brand refresh and rebranding to ensure that a nonprofit can continue to build their presence and fundraising in a time like this?
Sure, and this is as close as I might get to a little litmus test or a scorecard for folks, because we have seen an uptick with all the turbulence in nonprofits coming to us and say, is this the time to refine brand language? Is this the time to modify our visual identity? And we really want to always, what are we always looking for? We're looking to compete for share of hearts and share of wallets. And so that hasn't changed. That's always there. So then when should I really change? When am I jumping the gun? And then when is there room to change? And I'm just gonna organizations, nonprofits with growth patterns, often the specific mission changes over time. Have you done, and Chris mentioned this earlier, have you done an audit? Have you, in an orderly way, thought about where you are today versus where you started? And if it's changed or morphed into something different, how have you made your language consistent and your visual expressions consistent with where you are today? Does your current brand encapsulate all that you do? Or has it become sort of an ill-fitting suit, as we talk about it at our agency? So things that on a very visual standpoint, is the typography and color, the clothes your brand wears, do they still fit? Is the language current and of the day? Have you continued to be relevant in the market? And so goes back to, are we positioned correctly? Are the reasons to believe still current and meaningful? And then, yes, put this lens on, and I don't think it just has to be younger audiences, but look at untapped audiences. And as we look at untapped audiences, are we having to modulate our messaging, or is there an evolution of messaging that should occur to fit where we're at right now as an organization? We look at it when we go into a new branding project is like, and we do this through audit, research, talking to your end, could be both those that access the service because you don't want cognitive dissonance, and then you also those that are going to help be your greatest advocates. But you do that, and then you try to understand, is this an evolutionary feat or a revolutionary feat? How far does this change have to go? Again, not always massive modifications. Sometimes simple things will drive your organization forward.
Just wanted to jump in real quick, Roger.
I saw you get excited.
You had also said, Roger, it's time to consider, a brand refresh, or when people don't understand what you do, or they know your name, but they have no clue about the real value that you bring. So that's another time when you might want to at least contemplate it.
That's right, Chris. And that happens more than people would like.
Super. So I want to, Chris, I don't know if you have anything else to add regarding, your brand narrative or brand messaging as it relates to PR, media relations.
Sure. It's hard to believe that the things that are so essential in compassion, in community, have been now highly politicized, and politically charged, like the word equity, like in the education world, social and emotional learning, right? That's been targeted. Substance use disorder is experiencing major challenges, at the national level from a political standpoint. Mental health is now, not a clean phrase in. So when it comes to funding, DEI as well. So, and we're familiar with all these things that are happening, and the polarization that exists. So because of that, um, we're reviewing our nonprofit partners' website content, the words they're using to describe what they're doing. I was speaking with a nonprofit leader yesterday, and she said, we stop naming things because names can become targets. But if we're not naming them and we're just expressing what it is we're doing, there's really no argument. So, and I'm not saying getting rid of, all names. I'm just saying that, um, language can be changed or modified, not to cave in, but, to really weather the storm right now that we're faced with, that nonprofits are faced with, even public schools are faced with it as well right now. So,
Right.
and then when it comes to storytelling, people stories are critical. They're very compelling. They're a great way to talk about the value that you bring, the change that you create. So we recommend proactively pitching these stories to the media to get earned media coverage. And then that not only elevates awareness, but the maybe the advocates that you're trying to partner with, or the influencers that you're trying to get the attention of, or the donors, or the or other funders, um, maybe they didn't see that article or see that interview segment, but how you utilize or leverage that content is key. So you can send out through email campaigns your media coverage, not to boast, but just to say, hey, just thought you should see this. John Sayles was just in Newsweek, last week. I'm sure that matters to his key stakeholders, and he's on the call today. He's from the Vermont Food Bank. Um, but it's what I'm trying to get at here is, it's not the power. The power of the media placement is not when it runs or airs. It's what you do with it afterwards, how it helps your search engine optimization, how it helps your social media, how it helps your content marketing. There are a whole host of different ways that it can help, an organization beyond what's in print, what's online, or what's on television or radio or on a podcast.
Yeah, I'm sitting here thinking, I love that. Let's not waste time fighting to hold on to terms or language that the opposition has hijacked and has created negativity around, right? Like find a new way to talk about the good work that you're doing in your mission. So that's a great takeaway. Um, I want to turn to digital marketing now, specifically SEO, which is search engine optimization, and online reputation management, as well as content marketing, which we talked a little bit about. But Roger, can you share your thoughts about content marketing for nonprofits?
Sure. And I think when you think about when budgets might be tight, and budgets could always be tight, that having a great content marketing strategy and considering how we leverage this content across various marketing communication channels is very powerful. So when we post blogs or we're doing articles that go on our website, we're obviously building SEO. And if we are thinking about optimizing them and distributing them for search, we get the right keywords, we get our language correct. So we're building our brand voice over time, and we're optimizing it for the environment it lives in at the same time. So uh, don't just wedge something from one social media channel into the other without thinking with consideration what's best for the channel, but also you can be a little frugal or have an economy by understanding that you can leverage it across these channels. So what are the things that work over a variety of channels? Success stories. People want to hear about people doing well in the world. Not thought of as much as like, what is a donor concern? And how might we share that as a way in for people? Always stuff that indicates our impact. But again, as I talked earlier, it can't just be a fact. It has to be connected to a story about how this impact has made a difference in the world. That's how you're going to attract. And again, we're fighting against many different storylines. So we need to tell poignant stories that we can use to not only captivate current supporters, but to generate new supporters. Um, and some other things that might be obvious to some, but not used as often is how-to guides, depending on your organization, how to access services and how to share even the value of that service in the world. It could be a blog article. Absolutely downloadable resources when it makes sense. All these things will help with your search engine visibility. Because there's so many ways that we can attack this, we do recommend that you set a content calendar and that there's a clear planning on a monthly, quarterly, and yearly. We always say this is the must do. This is what we absolutely need to do to achieve. And there's a cadence to it. And then allow yourself some room for unanticipated content. I hope there's some wonderful news that you can share or some challenging news, but allow also some room for that. And that's just going to keep the standard of quality of the conversation up. You always have to consider the value exchange, because if you're putting out irrelevant, uninspired content, you're actually just training people to ignore you. So you really have to think about the value exchange. And I guess I know Chris he didn't quite get as excited here, but I know that Chris has more to share. So Chris, is there anything else on SEO you'd like to share?
Sure. You twist my arm, Roger.
Uh-huh.
Just a couple of very quick thoughts on it. Number one, because of because of the Google Grants program and the changes that have occurred that we've discussed, and the lowering of search volume that nonprofits have experienced as a whole across the nation, organic search optimization, or SEO, is more important now than ever before. And you don't have to pay for each click, like a paid social media ad, because there are no grants for social media ads, at least not yet. we're hoping that Meta is going to do that, but no, we're not holding our breath. So SEO is very important. And then the other thing is reputation management online. Online reputation management is an area that it can proactively and reactively help you shape perception and what people know, read, hear about your brand. So those two things are very important. And then when it comes to the content marketing that you were talking about and how that intertwines with digital, we like having one primary theme per month that's shared, say, in a blog article. Then that theme can be used for your media relations, your earned media, your PR coverage. It can be used, obviously, on social channels. It can be communicated in your e-newsletter. It can be utilized in your stakeholder communications through a variety of different channels. So then you kind of own in their minds that theme or that topic, which can be very relevant to them, and you want it to be, of course. So it's a great way of kind of creating that dominance of mind share or in mind share. So again, one theme per month. And when it comes to the quantity, or how many blog articles do you really, need to write or want to write for SEO? It's one or two a week, 800 plus words. And you can use AI to help you do that. You can take articles that you've written in the past and have ChatGPT rewrite that into completely unique content. No, you can give it instructions, no duplication of sentences, etc., and make sure that you insert phrases that you want to rank for online in search engines. So these are the things that are key. And then also looking at your website as a whole, looking at the words and phrases and how often you're using them on your website, because that's going to make a huge difference in what you're going to rank for. So those are the areas, again, and online reputation management, reviews, comments, posts about an organization that are negative, obviously are just going to compound the challenges that you're faced with right now.
All right. So as we start to wind down, I just remind everybody that if you have questions, please put them in the Q&A. We're at the point where it's an opportunity for Roger and Chris to share any bonus tips or strategies that on any particular topic that maybe we haven't already covered. Roger, we'll start with you.
Sure. One thing we really haven't talked about yet, and I know we have all different size nonprofits with us here today, but I don't think Team of Three or Team of 300, this still stands. We have to be considering internal communications always, but again, given the environment we're in right now, your team is your first line of brand ambassadors and strong internal communications. I see this as a member of a board. It is critical right now that we have everyone on the same page, that they understand where we're headed, and that our messaging, whether it's an organization that I see a great growth trend with, or one that's really just struggling, you still need to be transparent. You need to be clear, and you cannot communicate often enough with your team and your staff so that we have what we're telling one story. It's just absolutely critical. There was an article this morning again about the power of transparency with Gen Zs. And so again, as you think about different levels in your staff, I think it matters to everyone, but there is a young mobile workforce that if they view lack of transparency as opacity, clearly the opposite, and as what is going on. So share your organizational updates, celebrate both the wins, big and small, and make sure that our sense of shared purpose. Sometimes, again, sitting on a board, if I go and do sort of a spot audit and I hear it in the own words of staff, and then we parrot that out even to donors, that can be some of the most powerful testimonials that we have of our organizations. I guess that's my tip, really, Connie, is like, don't forget your own team. And don't forget the power of not just sharing, but also listening.
Yeah, I think that's so important. I know, again, being a former CEO, you get so wrapped up in dealing with the crisis at hand and the funding cuts and how am I going to make payroll and all that kind of stuff that you're making decisions, doing the best you can, hanging on, and you sometimes forget that your people are going through a lot of upheaval as well. And so I love what you said about also, just you know transparency, empathy, really checking in with people and letting them know, where things stand and recognizing that this is stressful for everyone at all levels. Great feedback there. Um, you know, Chris, I'm going to put you on the spot, so brace for this. So before we get into your bonus tip, I wonder what your thoughts are on thought leadership in particular, and the importance of nonprofit leaders, having a voice. There's a lot of negativity, a lot of, attacks being, made. There's a lot of false information being put out there, about a lot of the work that's being done by nonprofits and, really, accusations and what have you. And we don't, I don't know, I know we wouldn't advocate hitting those head on, but in terms of having a voice, and being active in the conversation and the ways of doing that and the value of thought leadership, can you just give us 30 seconds or so on that?
Sure. And it is a surprise question. It's the
This
surprise
is,
question of the day.
I am putting you on the spot.
No, no, no. It's that I'm glad you did. And thought leadership is a topic that is very important to me, because I believe in it so strongly. And I believe that all nonprofit CEOs or executive directors, um, and other leaders within your organization have an opportunity to be thought leaders as individuals and therefore can help promote the organization's thought leadership.
Yeah.
There is an article on our blog. I welcome you to go to it. It talks about thought leadership from an individual standpoint and from an organizational standpoint. And it's just a free resource that you can access. But I recommend it because it'll go into all the different ways that you can create thought leadership, or many. So thought leadership could entail taking an interview, on a timely occurrence or something that's in the news. And it doesn't have to be that you're putting yourself in harm's way by making a bold statement that's going to potentially further alienate your organization, right? Again, given the climate. But it could mean a speaking engagement. It could mean articles, thought leadership articles that you can then share with key stakeholders to demonstrate, again, your knowledge, intelligence, and the applicability it has from their perspective on in the community, um, in the world in which they live, and in the world in which you're operating and working. Again, it can be local, it can be statewide, it can be federal. Um, so the other piece of this is I always say that thought leadership is not just about being known, it's about being known for something. And that's really what's hardest to bridge. That goes back to the topic on writing, content for your website and for stakeholder communications and having a monthly theme, which is what I had emphasized. I said that because you can't be known for 12 different things, but if you're known for one, and ironically, when people say to me, what's Rosica? And I say we're leaders in thought leadership. And so it's try and focus on that one thing that you want to own in the minds and the hearts of the people that are most important to you, and do what you can from a content standpoint, from a communication standpoint, you could write a book, you could have a podcast. These are all things that impact thought leadership. So it takes time to build thought leadership in a category, but you can then be the go-to resource for media, for policymakers to come to for when they want more information. Many of you probably already have experienced that, where people come to you for information on X, name the space in which you work. So yeah, those are just some of my thoughts on thought leadership. And if you want to talk for like 3 hours, over a cup of coffee, call me later.
Excellent. Now your final tip and to wrap it up for us.
My final tip is embrace peer-to-peer support and learning. Embrace peer-to-peer support and learning. Don't go it alone. In times such as these, we need each other. You need each other. You can relate to one another. You know what you're experiencing. You have very similar challenges. Whereas maybe cousin Phyllis or cousin Lou, they don't know. Or maybe your friends and family just, can't wrap their arms around what it feels like to be in the crosshairs. So I know for me in business, it's been just such a powerful experience being in a CEO group, and I've been in multiple groups like Vistage and EO and YPO, and I've been surrounded by people who have gone through the same things, and it's really brought down the anxiety level, but it's also helped me understand what others are doing that's working, and then giving me kind of like the recipe book for baking the perfect cake, or not perfect, of course, but baking a good cake. So whether it's the New Jersey Center for Nonprofits, Common Good Vermont, OANO in Ohio, or any member of the National Council of Nonprofits, there are resources there. Debbie's doing so much and sharing so much information, and all these other groups are doing the same. But get with your own working group, a group of nonprofit executives that can meet even on Zoom, doesn't matter where they're located, on a monthly basis, so you can share your experiences and best practices, not opinions or advice necessarily, but experiences and best practices, because our ears open up when it comes from experience, rather than just advice. So that would be my final tip, Connie.
And sometimes it's just the shoulder, right? I know the Center for Nonprofits in New Jersey has Member Mondays. I think, that might be a good forum. There's lots of those across the country, really, and we really are stronger together. So that's a great piece of advice, Chris. Thank you so much.